portrait drawing on black paper. I'm going to do a full portrait drawing with shading. I'm going to start in a white charcoal pencil. Since I don't have a model with me, I'm just going to use Old Masters for my guides. You can use any photograph. Since we're in black and white still, the photograph should be in black and white. But I'm going to use this for my guide. It's by Michelangelo. So I'm going to try to do a portrait drawing with shading, and I'm just going to start by blocking in the proportions of the face. So I'm doing the same thing that I was doing before in the proportions of head sketch, but now since we know how to draw features, I'm going to add features and try to be able to do it with correct features, correct proportions, and shading. But it's going to take me a while. This may, well, depending on how long it takes me, it may take me 2 videos to do this. But I'm just trying to get, I'm blocking in the oval, but I'm also trying to get the shape of the face or the head. I may not have all of the material on top on here. Okay. So some of the head is above this because she's wearing a turban. So I'm going to make the eyes about right here. This line will be erased. And I'm going to go right down the middle. And then here again. Remember these lines from before. Here again. Here. Remember, this varies from person to person slightly. Okay. So I'm going to start with the eyes, and they're about here. I'm looking at the shape of the eyes on the picture, and I'm trying to get the shape correct, but I know this is going to need adjusting. So I'm just kind of sketching it in right now. And to check for size, I'm going to check if I can fit an eye in the middle or how off I am. It's actually pretty close. I'm going to bring this one out a little bit more. And this, again, I'm not going to put in detail. I'm going around, so I'm going to start putting in the features. This is about where the nose is. I'm going to make it a little lower because it seems to look a little bit lower on her face. Remember, everyone's face is different. And I'm trying to get the nose to be about under this line. And this is just a sketch in. Okay, and her mouth, what's weird about her mouth is that it's kind of, it doesn't seem to come all the way out here. It seems smaller than that. It kind of comes out like right outside of the nose. It's a little small compared to the usual mouths on a usual face. But remember, this is a painting that I'm copying from. This is the Delphic Sibyl from the Sistine Chapel. And I chose it because it has dramatic lighting on the shading on the face. And her mouth is open, but I'm still in sketching mode. Just trying to see if this looks like kind of correct or not, you know? And eyebrows. I'm just outlining shapes right now. This one needs to be a little bit, or the eye needs to be lower probably. Okay, so, I mean, I'm okay with that. It's not perfect, but I'm going to refine it. But as a starting point, I think that looks okay. You don't have to, like right now, we're not totally doing figure. So, I mean, you're doing any portrait you want. You don't have to copy this, but this is just an example. So you don't have to put in like the other stuff if you don't want like the neck. I'm just trying to get it in. And she's wearing a turban, which is kind of hard. But I'm going to try to put it in, or part of it in, probably not all of it, because it's not going to fit on my paper. Just so you can see how to do maybe some folds of fabric. I'm just trying to get the main folds and then I'll refine it later. But again, you're always moving stuff around when you're drawing. This is not really, like, this is still in the sketching phase, okay? So it's not perfect at all. I'm just kind of trying to block things in the right place. And remember, when we're doing it on the black paper, we're leaving the black as the dark. Just trying to get the major lines of the turban, which is, it's not really portrait drawing, but it's just an added element to this picture. This takes a lot of time. So, I mean, I'm trying to make the video as fast as I can, but these things actually take a lot of time. Like you could spend 6 hours on this. And hopefully in the future, I'll learn how to make a 6-hour video that is sped up in certain parts. But I start with a kind of contour and trying to get everything in the right place. I'm just still moving stuff around. And I mean, I move it around once and then I move it around again. That's just the way it goes. I try to see how one thing relates to another, and then I realize that I may have to move something. Okay, so that's my start. And if I want to go on the bottom, she's wearing, I guess, like a toga. I'm just making an outline for her hair. Okay, that's my starting point. Okay. Now I'm still going to come in and kind of, that was like a sketchy outline. And now I'm going to try to do an outline that's a little bit more realistic. So I'm looking at her features and I'm seeing where I'm going in with a darker line, which may need to be changed because it's white, but it's going to help me get started. And she's looking over here. So her eyeballs are like this. And I don't know. I'm thinking to myself, did I make the eye too big? You can draw along with this video or you can do your own on black paper. Nope, that's too. So I'm moving this eye over. And not perfect. I'm going to put in all the features and then see if I'm happy with the way it looks. You want to get your outline in first before you start doing any shading because you might have to move stuff around. I don't know, but and if it I wish I was actually I'm doing it on a small piece of paper, but I wish I was actually doing it on a bigger piece of paper, but I don't have a large black piece of paper right now. Just making it more firm and defined and trying to correct any mistakes that I've made. And then I'm going to look at the shape of the head of the face and her there's a line right here. So her chin is going to come down lower. And then once you change that, then you have to change other things like the neck, but that's the way it goes. I don't know if I'm happy with this. I'm just I'm just trying to get it on the paper. She has some under eye circles, so I'm kind of putting those in. And I'm sitting back for a second and I'm trying to take a look at it. And I'm trying to see what. I don't like this. Looks a little too defined. I'm just thinking right now, just trying to figure out if it's going to look really bad if I shade it or if I should start shading. I think it looks not really great, but okay. So I'm going to start shading. It's not too far off, so any changes I want to make, I can make later. So I am going to get a white piece of chalk and I'm going to start putting in the lights. Do I want to erase these lines? No, because it's going to be covered. I'm just looking for the lightest areas. So I'm using a piece of chalk for like big areas, and then for smaller areas, I'll use the charcoal pencil. I have a white and a black charcoal pencil, but I'm just trying to block in large areas that are in the light. So in this picture, this half of her face is in light and this half of her face is in shadow. I should have used the charcoal pencil for that because that's like a kind of a defined line. I'm actually going to come back to my white charcoal pencil because I'm going into some smaller areas. So I'm just looking for areas of light right now. Again, trying to block in the areas that are lightest. It's going to take me quite a bit of time to do this. Okay, so now that's a little bit, and that looks horrible as a drawing, but it can be refined. I'm getting a gray because this whole side of the face is mostly in gray. And I'm just going to put in, I'm probably going to just put this whole thing or big parts of it in gray, and then I'll refine it. This is probably going to take 2 videos, but that's fine. And I'm trying to see if I have a lighter gray. I'm just comparing those two. And I want something a bit lighter. This one is a little bit big though, but it's a lighter gray than white. I'm just blending a little bit with my finger. I'll do more blending later. And this looks like a horrible portrait, but it's not done. So I have these 2 grays that I'm using right now. I'm blocking in areas of different value. And I'm going to go on top of the eyes with a gray. The eyebrows would be a darker gray. I'll leave that for later. And in the under eye circle, this looks horrible, but it's not done. So as you can see what I'm doing, I'm actually probably going to stop the video, fill in some areas, and then come back and show you the video with me refining the details. Okay, so I blocked in most of the shading and I got some paint brushes. I'm going to use the paintbrushes to blend right now, and then I'm going to add detail with charcoal pencil. It kind of pulls some of it off just like a Q-tip. And then I blow on it just to get some of the powder off. It doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look as bad as I thought once I filled it in. I'm going to really fix it up with the charcoal pencils, but I'm just trying to get a smooth coat of value with chalk on here. Just smoothing it out, getting some of the black paper from showing. And I guess the reason we use black paper is to let the dark show through, but there's not really that many darks on the face. More so on some of the fabric. But you're adding you're adding the lights instead of adding the darks, which is what you're doing on the white paper. Okay, that's a start. I'm gonna maybe work on the other part later. So let me move the arrow. Okay, so I'm gonna come in with a black charcoal pencil. I also have a white one, but I'm gonna work with black first. And I'm gonna start working in the eyes. This is not going to be perfect. And it will need correcting, but I'm just getting started with the detail work. Let me get my paintbrush. And that's blending that pencil nicely. I'm just using the charcoal pencil for this because the pieces of charcoal are too thick. I'm trying to do outlines, and I'm also trying to do areas of value within the main values that I put on the face. So I kind of put in like a gray and a white, a medium gray, a dark gray, and a white, but there's areas that are darker and lighter within the face. I'm making the eyebrow a little bit darker than the skin. Okay, it's starting to look not great, but okay. right, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. Okay, so now I'm gonna get my white charcoal pencil because on this side of the face, there's like a little bit of a light on the edge. You could call it reflected light if you wanted to, but I'm blending with the paintbrush. You can use a blender, a Q-tip, or a paintbrush. I do really like the paintbrush. Okay. Now I'm going to come up here, and there's little areas that are lighter above the eyebrow. Try not to put your hand right in the chalk because it can really kind of mess up the whole thing. Then it's going to also be under the eyebrow. And I'm going to use the paintbrush. And I'm going to use it right here as well, bringing in a highlight. And I'm starting to be I'm not happy, really gleeful about the way that it looks, but it's starting to look kind of okay to me. Kind of more like a portrait than a messy charcoal shading thing. There's a little bit of a highlight right here. I don't want it to be white. I want it to blend into the gray value underneath it. Okay, it doesn't look so bad. All right, so now I'm going to move to the nose, which looks like a mess right now. So there's a middle, this side is really light, and then there's a middle kind of medium. And then over here it gets darker. I'm trying to make that like a medium, not totally white. Then you're seeing like a real highlight right here where it gets lighter on this side. I still don't have my hand in any chalk. This needs to be a little bit lighter compared to that. So this is a very time-consuming process. There's a bit of a highlight coming in here. And here it's a little bit darker, so I'm not pressing as hard with the white. Alrighty. So it doesn't look quite perfect, but let me come back to the nose. Let me go to let me actually right here it gets darker. Okay. And I'm going to kind of mix with the brush. If you do this with a brush or a Q-tip, you could have a brush for lights and a brush for darks, or a Q-tip for lights and a Q-tip for darks. Okay, let me take a look at the lips. Some areas are dark and some areas are light. I'm just looking for values. I'm happy with the outline, but the values need adjusting. Maybe I should go up here with the dark. And the bottom you see in dark. Again, I'm doing as much as I can. It could take me 6-7 hours to do this. Now I'm going to get the white. Not perfect at all. I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. Okay, so right here, I'm going to go, I want to bring this nostril a little farther out. It seems lopsided for some reason. Okay, so now I'm just looking at the area around the lips. And there's some areas that are really light, so I'm trying to block those in. And I'm going to get my paintbrush. That one is too hard. Starting to look okay. I mean, it just certainly doesn't look great, but it's starting to look kind of okay. I'm going to bring this, before I go onto that other eye, I'm going to try to drag this gray over to the outline with the paintbrush. There we go. And I'm going to get my white because there's some areas that are really highlighted over here. And I'm going to go up white to the edge of the eyebrow, or white mixed with gray. Okay. All right, so I'm going to get my black charcoal pencil and work on the eye. And I'm going to darken this eyebrow. Try to make it match the other one. Okay, it's starting to kind of look like a portrait. Okay, let's take a look at this. There's this under eye circle. There's certain areas, I mean, this really needs to be adjusted. I'm just kind of getting in the basics. And the adjustments could take a couple hours. There's like 2 under eye circles here. I'm just looking, I'm stopping and I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure out what needs to be adjusted, which is something you should always do. And oftentimes you should stand a little bit far away from it, and that'll help you figure out what needs to be adjusted. Do a little bit of blending right here with the paintbrush. Okay, just thinking to myself, what do I see? What do I need to add to this? What's missing? What's not really correct? And it actually, I mean, it looks decent for how much time. I'm going to lighten this gray. It's too dark. So you need to adjust like values. Like you can put in a value and say, well, that's lighter and that's darker, but it will need adjustment. This is too dark, this circle. And the adjustment, like I'm doing a little bit of adjustment, but I could spend a long time working on this, right? I'm just doing as much as I can. For a video. And what's going on right here? It's kind of a medium light. So I'm right here. So I'm going to try to mix this with white. And it's starting to look okay. I mean, it doesn't look perfect. I mean, it has a long way to go, but it's starting to look all right. Now, the face needs a lot more work, but just so you can kind of see some of the things around the face. This is actually still the face, but there's a real dark kind of cast shadow from the turban. I'm kind of pulling it around the face. This is just right under the turban. And I'm looking at the turban as well, but I'm getting my paintbrush. So each step improves the drawing a little bit. Just takes time, and you have to be patient while you're doing this. You have to learn to be patient and to constantly change things that need to be changed. I'm going to take a look. I'm going to come back to the turban. I'm going to take a look at the neck for a second. And then this part, I shouldn't be putting my hand on. So what you want to do, so like since I'm putting my hand over here, what you want to do is put a piece of paper under your hand so it doesn't mess up the charcoal, gets all over your hand, moves all over the picture. So I'm just putting this picture under my hand. And I'm darkening this edge. So the other side had a light edge, and this side has a dark edge. Okay. Now I'm getting the white charcoal pencil to bring in this side of the neck. Okay. I'm using the paintbrush. Just this neck needs more work, but I'm just kind of blending what I have so far. Not perfect, it needs more work. Okay, I'm gonna take a look at the turban. Actually, I'm gonna put in, well, no, let me look at the turban first. I'm gonna do as much as I can, but this nose needs more work. Okay, so let's see. Let me blend. Okay. So I'm going to get the white charcoal pencil and I'm going to put the picture this over. It's not this light, but I'm kind of making it a little bit lighter to exaggerate the form. Whoops. It's just a piece of fabric that's folded with highlights. And I'm going to get the paintbrush. I'm trying to blend this edge in. I'm trying to use the brush to spread some of the gray to the darker areas. Again, this turban could take a couple hours, so Just doing as much as I can. And this part is dark. Some people leave, like, for example, see how this bottom is like this? Some people will do some parts of, and this is kind of sketchy. Some people will do some parts detailed and some parts sketchy and leave that as their drawing. It's a form of variety of like some loose drawing and some detail drawing. I do want to kind of, I don't like, see like all that powder gets over here. So I'm going to kind of try to erase it. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on the turban because you're here for a portrait, but that gave you a little, I mean, that's totally not done, but that gave you a little idea about it. And I'm going to look at the hair. Now, in the picture, the background is light, but I don't want to I want to leave the background black. So I'm going to get so this is my grays. I'm looking for a darker gray for the hair. So I'm going to make the hair probably a little lighter than it is. And that's using creative license. Anytime you use a picture for reference, you can change it as much as you want. That's probably too light. But I'm going to get the paintbrush and start blending it. This is a direct, I mean, it's pretty much almost a direct copy to demonstrate skills, which means it's not an original piece of artwork, but we're just looking at skills right here. But if you wanted to, like, I mean, for example, if I showed this in a gallery, I would have to say this was a copy of the Delphic Sibyl by Michelangelo, and we're just looking at skills right now. I'm not going to show this in a gallery, but you can use photo reference, and if you change it enough, like if you want to do a portrait and you print out a face and you print out a bunch of noses and you change it enough, then it would be considered an original, which is a lot of what I do in my paintings if I don't have a model. Okay. Now, the hair is a little bit different because I didn't want to make it dark. I'm just going to make a few lines in there. The hair in the painting doesn't really look like real hair. Okay. I may go kind of darker right here. That would need a lot of work. And I'm kind of veering off from the example. Just trying to put in some light and dark line work to make it look somewhat like hair. But again, the reason I kind of veered off was because the background is light and my background is dark. All right, I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, so I'm coming back to the portrait and I'm seeing if I think there's anything I need to refine. I'm going to bring this down a little bit because it looks lopsided. And I'm just looking at the picture. Let me look at the eyes though. I'm going to make some areas lighter and leave some areas as they are in the white part of the eye. And that's adding a highlight. Then I'm going to look back and try to correct any shading I need to correct on the face. It's kind of like, I feel like I've done like half of the shading, right? It needs a lot more detail work. And I'm just making a few adjustments because I don't want to make this video too long. You can leave line work. Like, you don't always have to have it perfectly blended. It's up to you, like what your personal preference is. Like, I think that looks like okay as some line work. I may blend it later. The lips don't look quite right to me. I don't know. And this nostril doesn't look right. I'm probably messing it up more, as often happens when you're drawing. I'm just looking for kind of areas of shading that I missed. And you want it, so basically what I'm showing you now is like developing skills by kind of copying. It's you can do some of this and then you can do some with a model. That would be really good. But then later you want to do original work, but in the beginning, I mean, do as much copying as you need to develop your skills. What do I need to adjust? I'm just looking at it and thinking. Some of it looks quite sketchy, which is, it's fine. It's just practicing. It's okay to have line work on it if you want to, or you can really blend it smoothly. This might be, I may have gone a little too dark with this. Just lightening it up a little. Trying to blend this. I'm going to go darker on this lip. And right here. And I'm just studying it a bit. It's totally not perfect. It could take me a couple more hours to finish this. I'm going a little light around the darkened lip, but very faint as a form of contrast, right? In contrast to the dark, there's usually light. And her mouth is open. I didn't make it open because that would take another couple of hours. So this nostril I don't like. It's a lot of work, but the charcoal can actually give you a really nice drawing. It's just, it can be a little messy, especially at the beginning. And I'm going to stop here. You could refine this for a couple more hours.